They're all out there, all right.
Myself and Mr. Bullock.
Yeah, so everybody that's that had a hand in this, thank you very much. I mean, you know, the layout. I mean, all the stuff up on the bulkheads, the setup with all the a bunch of famous African Americans, including our own XO. So I'm not sure if he had something to do with setting that up. But that's very nice. And then here, Ray, and a lot of sports memorabilia. So a lot of good stuff in there. Make sure you take some time afterwards, take a look at the displays, and just the setup of the food was awesome with all the info on various historical figures. I thought that was really cool too. So I know we got the judges over here working hard, trying to figure out what the best dish is.
Very tough.
Yeah, so I don't envy them on that one. So the topic today is African Americans in times of war, right? So we have a guest speaker. One of our own folks is going to be here to speak, so that's awesome. The wonders of the internet. You can go on the internet, you can just type up African American military heroes, and you'll get this huge list of folks that pop up. And so I'm just going to highlight a couple people that I came across. First was Corporal Decatur Dorsey. He was in the 39th U.S. Colored Infantry Regiment during the Civil War. He won the Medal of Honor for carrying his unit colors during the Battle of the Crater in Petersburg, Virginia, and on 30 July 1864. Flash forward to World War II, you got Benjamin Oliver Davis, one of the Tuskegee Airmen. He was the first soldier of color to attend the Air War College in Alabama, which is, just trying to think of that during the time that he was going to school is pretty impressive. And then he was the first black Air Force general. Flash forward to Vietnam, you got PFC Milton Lee Olive III. He was the first black soldier awarded the Medal of Honor in Vietnam. He smothered a grenade on 22 October 1965, saving 4 of his fellow soldiers. And then, continue on the Vietnam vein. We had 3 ships named after African American Medal of Honor winners from Vietnam: Oscar Austin, Ralph H. Johnson, which is I think right about to get commissioned or just got commissioned, and then Rodney M. Davis, which was an FFG, which was econ over the last few years. So there's a rich history of valor, and it's pretty impressive when you take a couple minutes to go through that. So I would offer that maybe you should do that at some point, on a rainy day or something like that. Learn about the history. Thanks everybody in here for all the support that you provide to our current war fighters, giving them what they need so they can go pick to fight the enemy if that's what we need to do. With that, I'm going to close out, and I want to turn it over for the introductions, and we'll get on with the program. Thanks for being here today. Appreciate it.
Good morning.
Morning.
I hope everyone took the opportunity to enjoy the Taste of Soul. Our esteemed judges, they're working very hard on their plates. Our esteemed XO, Captain Abraham, Mr. Dale Rick, and we have a guest judge with the Croker Spot. I don't know if you all are familiar with that restaurant, but it's a local soul food restaurant in the area. The winner will be announced after the presentation, okay? And please don't bother them afterwards. They're going to be napping.
No, XO's not.
Okay. So, today, as you know, we're honoring African Americans in the times of war. Our speaker today is our very own Mr. Michael Bullock. Mr. Bullock is the director of the GDSC branch here at NAFSA Fleet Logistics Center, Norfolk. Mr. Bullock developed a passion for speaking on the subject of black history over 20 years ago. Traveling the world in the Navy and in his personal life, he began lecturing on a number of aspects of black history. In 2007, he did a birthright trip to Egypt to reconnect himself to his African roots. He's also the president and CEO of a nonprofit organization which he provides diversity training to faith groups, after-school programs, and businesses interested in appreciating the achievements of Africans and African Americans. A couple of his lecture topics include giant footprints in the sands of time, blacks in military history. Some of the locations that he provided his lectures are at the National Defense University and the National Security Agency, and also Regent University. So I present to you Mr. Michael Bullock.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Oh, now you all sound like you sound like you're awake. I'm glad. Food must be really good. All right. I want to first of all thank our CO, Captain Lothar. Is that correct? I just want to mess your name up. I work for you. I know I hear about it lately. Our XO, our ED, our distinguished guests, our family and friends. Thank you all for coming out today. The food obviously was a draw, but you know, we're here for a reason, and that reason is for us to take a moment to honor the achievements of African Americans. This year it happens to be in the area of war, or in times of war, and that's an interesting subject. And hopefully, I'll be able to make the point. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about it, then I'm going to remind you what I talked about. That's the way we do it in public speaking. But you know, for African Americans, whether we've been in uniform or not, we've been at war with something. Hello? All right, you know, now, since y'all don't know me, and this is our first date, I like to make sure my audiences are listening to what I have to say. So from time to time I stop, I want to get some response. And y'all just had those big meals. So I know you're going to start getting tired in a little bit, so I'm going to pick on some of you to make sure you don't get tired. Are you with me? Yeah. All right. Now, normally I make everybody say check. You know, that was my old thing years ago. You know, I'm going to come up with a new word. You know, maybe we're going to do an African word this year. Y'all want to learn an African word? Yeah. Do you want to learn an African word? Yeah. All right. In Africa, in one of the languages, in one of the West African languages, there's a word they use called a.k.a. You all say that? A.k.a. A.k.a. means that when somebody says something and you agree with it, you are agreeing with it totally, mind, body, and spirit. You know, so we used to say right on way back in the 70s and in the 80s and 90s. We used to say word, and we have all these code words or whatever. So, but in the African language, since this is African American History Month, the last day I might add, we're gonna pick an African word. Ashe? All right, now we're gonna get down to business because I know I'm on a timer, but I'm gonna get through all of this. Our theme is African Americans in time of war. And as I said earlier, whether or not we were fighting on foreign shores or whether we were dealing with things right here at home, we've always been in some sort of war, even if it was war for the hearts and minds of our fellow man. Ashe? Ashe. All right. Now, just a little housekeeping note, for those of you who don't know, in 1915, there was a man by the name of Carter G. Woodson who initiated something called Negro History Day, which expanded to Negro History Week. And it started in February, not because it's the shortest month of the year. It was in February because Abraham Lincoln's birthday and Frederick Douglass's birthday are in that month. Okay, so what Mr. Woodson decided to do was to have a week to honor these two giants, Abraham Lincoln for emancipating the slaves, Frederick Douglass for what he did. So from Negro History Week comes Black History Month. Ashe? Ashe. All right. Now we're talking about African Americans in military history. Now I went to the Dayomi site, and they always do slideshows or whatever for each month. And I looked at what they had. Quite frankly, it was a little short as far as I'm concerned. Because when you talk about black people in military history, you just can't start in World War II, or you just can't start with the Tuskegee Airmen or the Golden 13. You got to start in the beginning. So I like to go back to the beginning. So I went back to the time when there was the American War for Independence. And everybody's seen this picture before. You got the old guy drumming and the man playing the flute and another one drumming and the flag in the background. And surely everybody's seen this picture before. They even redone this with the Geico commercial now. Because they dragging the boat across there. And as usual, you see, here's the brother right here. The brother rowing. George Washington just standing there. But what about black people in the Revolutionary War? What did we ever do? I want to give a shout out to our folks at the PAO office because the brother did a beautiful job with this poster we have over here in the back, talking about the Bucks of America, because that was one of the great groups that actually stood up and fought for the Continental Army. Now, as you can see, you don't see this picture too much in the history books, but here you can clearly see 3 European types or 3 Caucasian types and a brother in a uniform. Because guess what? We were going to fight the English too. Okay? As I said, we talked about the blacks in the Continental Army. Now, originally, George Washington didn't want black people in the Continental Army because he didn't know what the black folks was going to do with those guns. So, he was like, no, we don't want them. Then, when the colonies started losing the war, he got wise and started allowing black people to fight in the Continental Army. Now, I point out these three people. Everybody should know who Crispus Attucks was because he was the first person that got killed in the whole Revolutionary War conflict. But then there's another brother over here by the name of Prince Hall. Now, for my traveling men who are there in the audience, you ought to know who he is because there's a great fraternal organization that's named in his honor. But guess what? Prince Hall and some of the individuals from the Boston and the Massachusetts area, they were part of these Bucks of America. And they actually fought in the Revolutionary War. There's another great brother by the name of Peter Salem, excuse me. And I'm talking fast now because I know I'm on time. Now you see that this is the artist rendition of the Battle of Bunker Hill. Now, once again, we're in the picture, but we're in the back. So I got to point out, there's the brother right there, Peter Salem, who supposedly did the shot that killed the commander on the other. You see the dude laid out on the ground? Peter Salem shot him. Okay? Ashe?
Oh, sure.
All right, so did you hear about this when you were in history class? No. Okay, see, that's why we got to have Black History Month. Because nobody can tell our story better than we can. And it's our affirmative duty to tell our story. And I don't just start in the middle of the book, I'm going to start in the beginning. So when we talk about American history, let's talk about American history. We're going to talk about the Revolutionary War. Again, this brother Peter Salem at the Battle of Bunker Hill did his part. They even have, and there's another brother named Salem Poor. Now, depending on what historians that you talk to, some of them get these guys confused. But this gentleman also was in that great battle, and he even had a postage stamp made in his honor. His name is Salem Poor. Ashe?
Ashe.
All right, thank you. And we got this made to him too. But guess what? Black people just didn't fight on the side of the colonies. Because the British, there was a guy by the name of Lord Dunmore who said, you know what? If George Washington don't want to use the blacks to fight, then I'll free all of the blacks that'll come and fight on the side of the British. So guess what? He had, Lord Dunmore and the British had something called the Ethiopian Regiment. And these were all black folks that fought on the side of the Brits. Okay? Now, it's interesting because when I was doing my research about this, I found out, and here you see the brother, he's dressed up like, you know, he's not in a red coat, but obviously he's fighting on their side. But when you see that, I went to the Hampton Museum over there in the city of Hampton, and you see that white guard that says liberty to slaves? That's what the Ethiopian Regiment fought in, okay? And there was a very famous battle that happened right around the corner at this place called Kemp's Landing, or what we now call Kempsville. And the Ethiopian Regiment fought at the Battle of Kempsville. Now, how many of y'all live in Virginia Beach? Okay, so you all heard of Kempsville. Did you ever hear about this battle? No. Oh boy, that's why you're here. Ashe? Ashe. All right. Now, as I said, I'm on a timeline, so I can't talk about everything, but it's quite obvious that we made our mark during the Revolutionary War. But let's go to the Civil War, because that's the big one everybody one likes to talk about. You had African Americans who fought in the Civil War, obviously on the side of the Union when the Union started losing. And one of the people who fought was this very famous woman by the name of Harriet Tubman. Now, everybody knows about Harriet Tubman because they know that she escaped from slavery, and she helped hundreds of other black people to escape from slavery. But during the Civil War, she actually worked as a Union spy. And at one point, she actually led a group of troops into combat herself. The first woman to do this. I should say that for Women's History Month, huh? I can recycle? You know y'all ain't gonna have me back next month. Then there was this sister by the name of her name was Cathay Williams. She actually dressed up like a man to fight with the Buffalo Soldiers. Now, when she went to fight with the Buffalo Soldiers, she went under the name William Cathay. She cut her hair, and she passed her examination or what have you, and she actually fought with the Buffalo Soldiers. Black woman, during the Civil War now. So what we're getting at here is that we had people who were so interested in the concept of freedom that they were willing to put their lives on the line, regardless of whether or not they actually lived to see it. They were willing to fight for it. Ashe? Ashe. All right. So she was honorably discharged in 1868 as the first female Buffalo soldier. Bad woman. Oh, now y'all, I see you awake now. All right, now, most of you have heard probably of the Massachusetts 54th. How many of y'all saw the movie Glory? That was a good movie, wasn't it? Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington. What's that dude from War Games? Matthew Broderick? One playing on the computer? Well, the thing about that movie, it was based on a true story, but there actually was a character in the movie that was very close to home. All of us remember in the end when they had that big fight at Fort Wagner, and they went and ran up into the fort, everybody got killed? Well, that's not the way it really went down. Everybody didn't die, okay? Now, the character that I identified the most with was Denzel's character. And as it so happens, Denzel's character, as you can see in the movie, you see how everybody's getting blown away. But the gentleman you see over to the left, his name is William Carney. That was the real guy that Denzel was portraying. Now what's interesting about this brother is that he was born, guess where? Norfolk, Virginia. Okay? So let's see the real story behind Glory. Okay? Mr. Carney first he started out here as a slave. He escaped and goes to Massachusetts, joins the Massachusetts 54th. He fights in that battle. He got wounded 5 times. You remember when Matthew Broderick made this long speech, and then he turns to the guy with the flag, and he says, you know, if this man should fall, who will take his place? And everybody looked around. Yeah, not me, boss. Because you're not supposed to let the flag hit the ground. Well, in the movie, the guy gets shot, Denzel picks up the flag, starts running, he gets shot and gets killed. In real life, William Carney, when the flag bearer was shot, he picks up the flag and keeps fighting. He got wounded 5 times and did not die, nor did he let the flag touch the ground. Ashe? All right, this brother lived to be an elder statesman. I ain't gonna call him an old man. An elder statesman. But he died in Massachusetts. But the brother was born right here in Norfolk. I see. I had that mind control or something. But the thing about this is, these are the stories. Because, you know, I go to the Civil War reenactments. I go to Colonial Williamsburg. I don't ever see any of these people get reenacted. You know, I never see that. So I got to do the reenactments at my house. Here's another brother, Robert Smalls. Now, he was a slave in South Carolina. What's interesting about him is that he was a ship's pilot for the Confederacy. And one day he said, you know, I done had enough. I'm not going to be a slave no more. Before I be a slave, I'll be dead in my grave. So one night, when all the Confederate soldiers left the boat, he put on the captain's outfit, the captain's hat, and took the ship called the CMS Planter. And he piloted from the harbor in Charleston, where the Confederates were, to the Union lines, and he turned the ship over to the Union.
Oh, interesting.
That's the Navy story. Ashe? Ashe. Now this brother said, my race needs no special defense. For the past history proved us to be as good as any people anywhere. All we need is an equal chance in the battle of life. Once again, the theme, African Americans at war. This brother also has a book written about him called Be Free or Die. His name is Robert Smalls. Hope y'all taking notes on this. Because I don't want you to believe a word I say. I want you to go behind me and check and see whether what I'm saying is true. Because the thing is, we as adults, we have an affirmative duty to know what's being taught to our children. And when our children don't learn or they don't get a certain amount of information about themselves, they go around kind of blind. You know, and it's kind of like, you know, if you look at a picture and all you see is one little crop picture, a part of the picture, and that's all you ever look at for years and years and years, you're going to tune out. And that's why a lot of young black people, when they go to school and they learn history, we tune out because we're always looking at the same little crop piece of the picture. But when you can see yourself in the picture, I can see myself in Robert Smalls. I can see myself in William Carney. I can see myself in Prince Hall. Ashe? Ashe. And this is actually a bust that they have of him that's at the Black History Museum in Washington, D.C. Robert Smalls. But we're not finished yet because we got to go to World War I. Let's talk about the First World War, the war to end all wars. Black people finally got an opportunity to participate in that. And there was a very famous regiment called the Harlem Hellfighters. These brothers actually were the 369th Infantry Regiment that was out of New York. Now, the regiment was intact during World War I and World War II, but it got its greatest fame during World War I. Now, here again, we had the thought that black people were inferior, that we can't do this, that we can't do that. The Harlem Hellfighters proved them wrong. Because when they finally got to France, they got to fighting, they put something on those Germans so bad, the Germans called them bloodthirsty black men. Because all the mess we were taking over here, and then when we went to Germany and they thought they was going to push us around, no way. And the commander of the Harlem Hellfighters had a quote. He said, my men never retired. They will go forward or die. There was not one Harlem Hellfighter that was ever captured. There was not one that ever gave up the truth. Because that was back when they had trench warfare. That was back in the day warfare. Not one trench was ever lost by this regiment. Ashe? Ashe. All right now. Now this is one of the most famous ones. This is my brother here now. This, I know. This is my alter ego right here. Black Death. Born in North Carolina. He's a member of the Harlem Hellfighters. In May of 1918, he and one other guy held off a German raid of 24 soldiers and killed all of them. When he ran out of bullets, he started busting upside the head with his rifle. When the rifle broke, the brother went for what he knew. His old trusty bolo knife. He was actually decorated with the Congressional Medal of Honor for his valor during that fight. Now the Harlem Hellfighters also fought at, what was it, Peleliu? I think I got it in here. No, I don't have it in here. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. No, Belleau Wood. That's what it was. Belleau Wood. Because you know how we have a USS Belleau Wood? That was a very famous battle during World War I. The Harlem Hellfighters were there. Another famous brother, now he wasn't a Harlem guy or a Harlem Hellfighter. He actually was the first black combat pilot. His name was Eugene Bullard. He is my cousin. Just misspells his name. Now he went to France because he was not allowed in the U.S. Air Corps, so he joined the Foreign Legions and the French Air Corps, and he fought with them. Now they call this man Black Death from the Sky. Now when they gonna make a movie about him? When we gonna make a movie about him? Ashe? All right now. Now this gentleman was decorated with several foreign decorations or whatever, but he was not just a pilot. And we got a poster for him over there on the wall. He wasn't just a pilot, but when the war was over, he opened up like a boxing school over there. So he was multi-talented. You know, but one thing that a lot of these people have in common is that they were always striving to make sure that black people got our recognition, not just as fighters, but as human beings. Ashe? Ashe. All right, let's move on to World War II. I'll bring that home, because I know y'all can't wait to get back to work. Everybody heard about the Golden 13. These were the first African Americans that were commissioned in the Navy. I am a former commissioned officer, so I stand on their shoulders. I don't stand on their back, I stand on their shoulders, because I wouldn't be where I am were it not for them. We learned a little bit about these gentlemen, but just to think of the things they had to go through during the World War II period just to get commissioned, I have to give a shout out to them. This sister here, I'm not going to leave the sisters out, Major Charity Adams. She was in the African Americans Women Army Corps. Now the thing about them was they forward deployed, I believe it was to France, no, England. And they were in charge of all of the mail and things of that nature. And her commander was like, well, you know, you can't do this job right. You're a woman. You know, I'm going to send a man in there to take your job. And she said to him, with all due respect, the hell you will. All right? Now, she got rolled up by her commander. Because that was insubordination. But she clapped back at him and she said, you know what? If you're going to try and take my job from me just because I'm a woman, I'm going to bring you up on charges, sir, for being discriminatory in a time of war. And guess what? He backed down. Ashe? Folks don't play. Here she is with her troop of all black women. And these women played a very important part in the war because all of us who've ever forward deployed, you know, the one thing you look for is male. you want to hear something from somebody at home. So these sisters were very important. All right, now here's another one, and this sister has a poster up on the wall, Bessie Stringfield. Now, she was an Army dispatch during World War II. But the big thing about her was she loved motorcycles, as you can see. And she would ride her motorcycle back and forth across country, even though this was a time when black people where you couldn't go stay at any Holiday Inn or whatever, or you couldn't go get gas in certain places. But this lady had such a love for riding, and she was so dedicated to what she was doing for the Army that they actually made her the only female dispatch that they had. Now, I put this little cartoon in there because, you know, this is just breaking it up a little bit, but they say this woman married 6 times, you know, so you know this woman had some gumption to her, you know. She caught a lot of flack from the police or what have you, and then when they was messing with her, she showed them how good a rider that she was. The police left her alone. I think she passed away at the age of 90 or something like that, and it says here when she was 70 years old and she got interviewed, she said she wouldn't be involved with a man over the age of 35. Wait a minute now. We got a little age discrimination going on here. All right, and that's the sister on her Harley Davidson, and actually Harley Davidson, they really did a shout out to her because she was a very big proponent of their motorcycles. Okay, now we get into something that's very near and dear to my heart, because this brother here is one of the first Mumford Point Marines. Anybody ever heard of them? Some have, some haven't. Well, back in the day, the Marine Corps was the last service to integrate. And when they didn't even want black people to train at Parris Island. So, when the Marine Corps started allowing people to come in, they made a training place at this place called Mumford Point, North Carolina. And the first Marines to train there were known as the Mumford Point Marines. Now, these brothers, they was no joke, because they realized what they had to deal with as far as the discrimination and things of that nature. So if the boys at Parris Island was running 2 miles, the boys at Mumford Point ran 4. Ashe? Ashe. This man you see here is Mr. Sergeant Major Gilbert Johnson. They call him Hashmark. Why? Because he had been in all of the services that were in existence at the time. Started out in the Army, left the Army, joined the Navy, left the Navy, joins the Marine Corps, and advances to the rank of Sergeant Major. He's a bad man. And these guys, these Mumford Point Marines, I mean, we think today, you know, Marine Corps, you know, Marines are tough. But these brothers was double tough because they realized what they were up against. And so, you know, when you go hand to hand with them, you see this brother putting his soul clap on this man. Ashe? We're almost done. All right, this is a brother here who was in the Coast Guard. I don't want to leave out the Coast Guard, but this is, you know, we've been present in all of the great services or what have you, and we've really tried to make our presence felt. I'm coming to the close here, but I just wanted to kind of tie things up and just to make this to where it gives you something to think about. Now, our brother Ray over here put this wonderful, wonderful display of this baseball memorabilia. Can we please get his brother? Can we get his man a hand, please? And if you want to hear about it, stop by his office. He'll tell you. He got some stories for you now. But he talked about Jackie Robinson, and I think a couple of the things he has up here are with Mr. Jackie Robinson. But a lot of people don't know that Jackie Robinson was in World War II. Or at least he was in the Army in World War II. He was in a very famous tank battalion called the 761st, which is over here on the other side of the wall. Okay? Now, the nickname for this group was called the Black Panthers. Uh-oh. Where you going with this, brother? All right. First of all, these guys fought for General Patton. And even though Patton didn't think too much of black people, when he needed us, we performed. And as you can see here in the newspaper, it says here that we were actually the ones that were cutting a path for the 3rd Army. This was near the Battle of the Bulge. If anyone's ever heard of that. But I found it interesting when we talk about Jackie Robinson and this Black Panther thing, because you know they just had that Black Panther movie to come out. Well, where you going with this, Brother Bullock? Now, how you going to stretch this one out? Well, you know the guy, Chadwick Boseman, who played Black Panther? Okay, he's played in a few movies. He played Thurgood Marshall in a movie. He played James Brown. but he also played Jackie Robinson.
That's right.
Ashe?
Ashe.
Don't mess with me. I want to put this one in here too, because this is kind of bringing everything to a close, and then I want to reinforce the point that I made about how we've been at war and fighting for things, even when it wasn't overseas. Because this brother here, everyone should know, is Mr. Medgar Evers. He was a World War II veteran. He actually fought in the Battle of Normandy in 1944, June of 1944. His claim to fame was what he did in civil rights, because he was an NAACP office chief in Mississippi. And even though he fought in World War II, came home safely, he was murdered in Mississippi by another Mississippian, okay? Because even though we've been fighting overseas and fighting for freedom and fighting for equality and things of that nature, we did not have that here at home. So these brothers, thank you, sister, these brothers and these sisters, they realized that, look, even though I take off the military uniform, I got another uniform I can't take off, and that's my skin color. So they were willing to take the skills that they had and take it to the people who needed it the most. And they were willing to put their lives on the line. And this brother says, in his own words, 2.5 years ago, I endangered my life. Only return to our native country and state and be denied the basic things for which we fought. Ashe? Ashe. The reason why I put this in here is because even though we have great stories of overcoming things, we still have many things to overcome in this country as a people. And those of us who are lucky enough to wear the uniform and get skills, whether it's a supply officer or a line officer or whatever you say your claim to fame is, we learn a lot of things, but we don't spend very much time in our communities where the people who could actually need to see us and learn from us, we don't spend a lot of time with them. So I say that because even though I did my 20 years and I retired, I always felt it was my duty to try and give something back to people. Not just to say, okay, I wore the uniform, but I wanted to show some of these young people who never see a person like myself in school, let them see me work with them and put something in them so that maybe I might be someone that inspires a Jackie Robinson or a Medgar Evers. Ashe? Ashe. All right. Now, this is the last part of it, going into African Americans in time of war from Vietnam and beyond. And obviously, when we talk about the Vietnam War, which is was a very unpopular war, there was somebody who lost his life talking about the Vietnam War. And that was Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Now, I know this is not a King holiday, but I wanted to bring this up because this 2018 is the 50th anniversary of his assassination. And this is the end of February. April is coming pretty soon. That's going to be all over the newspapers. But just think about this now, because one of the last things that he was talking about was the Vietnam War and how unjust it was. Time has proven that what the man had to say was worth listening to. Ashe? Ashe? So this means sometimes you got to have the courage to speak out even when it's unpopular. All right? This sister here, Marcella Hayes, she was the first female pilot in the armed forces or whatever in the Army. They talk about where she trained. But again, you wouldn't have people who were in this position to be privileged, to be the first whatever, if you didn't have all those people prior to her that paved the path. Ashe? Ashe. All right, everybody knows about Colin Powell, former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Again, he would not be in that position were it not for people who were willing to risk their lives just so he could achieve that which he has the ability to achieve. Ashe? Ashe. Lastly, we had a sister here, Emily Perez, who was, actually she died in 2006 in Iraq or what have you, but she was the highest ranking woman in the, not Naval Academy, at West Point. And her picture obviously is on a lot of the posters or what have you. But these people come from a long line of folks who have sacrificed, who've done great things. And all of us have it within ourselves to do great things if we only look inside and see that we can do it and then make it happen. Ashe? Ashe. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I promised I was going to stay on the timeline, and I've done my best to do so because I know you got to get back to work. Particularly my people. Just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right. But I want to thank you all for indulging me because I know most of you don't know me. And this is my passion, as you can see. And I hope that today, either from the food that you got for your bodies or maybe the food that you got for your mind, that something will stick with you and that you will take what you learned and not just make this an event, but make an idea or make something bigger out of this. So thank you very much for listening. And I turn you back over to our host. Q&A. No, I'm done.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bullock. I'm sure that we all can agree he was excellent. Excellent. In our meetings, when we have our lunch and learn meetings, prepping, all we can get out of him is a That's so awesome. Awesome. We really, and I just want to present you the certificate to say thank you for speaking to us today.
Thank you. Oh, brother, want to take a
You want
picture?
to take a picture? Yeah, I got this. I had yours.
All right. I'll shake.
Okay, drum roll, please. The winner of the 2018 Taste of Soul is the Gooey Pumpkin Butter Cake.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Congratulations. That concludes our ceremony. Thank you so much.
Okay. Yeah.